Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? Today we're going into r/prorevenge, where revenge is served cold, but I'll be damned if it doesn't burn the afflicted. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get started. Neighbor sued me after harassing my dog for months. Lost horribly. Oh, this is gonna be a good one. I can just tell. Several commenters telling me that you guys would enjoy the story. About 6 or 7 months ago, my neighbors got a drone. I don't mind people having hobbies, but for some reason, he insisted on flying like the biggest jerk possible. He would hover in front of other houses and windows, trying to race cars going down the road. And worst of all, he had a habit of flying his drone in my fenced backyard, buzzing all over my dog, diving low just over my dog's head before circling him around to do it again. My dog isn't small, he's about 70 pounds and a Malamute, but the drone terrified him. And I was terrified what would happen if it hit him. I asked my neighbors several times to please not fly in my backyard, and I explained that it was scaring my dog. He basically told me to get lost and laughed in my face. When it still continued, I called the police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do other than ask him to please not fly over my house and property. Finally, in late December, it happened. My dog got tired of his shiz and managed to catch the drones right as it was diving towards him. He shredded the drone. The thing was just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. Neighbor was peeved. He stormed over to my house, swearing and threatening me, which I ignored. A week later, I got summons to a small claim courts. He wanted $900 for the cost of his drone, and an additional $300 for supposedly denying him access to his property. The drone sat in my yard for a couple of hours before it was retrieved. Screw that! He could have killed my dog. I don't have kids or a girlfriend. I just have my dog, who has been my best friend for the past 7 years. That dog has moved with me 3 times. Was there when I graduated college and saw me buy my first house and my first new car. I love my dog. I went to legal advice and got some great help from them. Turns out, him suing me was the best thing to ever happen. When we got to small claims court, the judge basically laughed away his claims that I had intentionally trained my dog to attack his drone. But little did he know I was prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard, showing it was impossible for him to accidentally fly that low to my dog. Videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and I had saved all the medical bills from taking my dog to the vet. $700 for an x-ray? Check. Another $250 to sedate him during? Why not? Don't want him being uncomfortable. Full dental exam with tooth cleaning and repair? $400. Then there was the cost of anti-anxiety meds and a secondary checkup, wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra, just for good measure. In the end, the arsehole ended up owing me almost $2,000 and is now being investigated by the FAA for not having a registered drone and violating several FAA regulations concerned about drone flight. Too near to an airport, too close to other people, and out of sight of operator, and way above the maximum altitude. Enjoy never being allowed to fly drones again, dickhead. Well, in situations like this, what I like to say is, you mess with the dog, you get the log. Our next story is called She Hated Me and Made Me Think I Was an Idiot. I don't know if this is pro, but it is certainly more than petty. In high school, 10 years ago, I was quiet and attentive in class. Teachers liked me. I wasn't popular, but I had good friends. I say this to explain that high school was relatively calm for me. I played sports, was on the student newspaper, and got decent grades. However, all that changed my second semester junior year. I've always been a voracious reader. My freshman English teacher recommended I move up to the honors English track. So I did for freshman, sophomore, and the first half of junior year. Then I was put into classical literature my second semester junior year. I've always loved Greek and Roman stories, and had them already read your typical high school classical reading list on my own. I didn't mind reading them again until I met Mrs. Umbridge. She put on a sweet facade, but she was downright evil. She also decided that she hated me. I still do not know why or what transgression I committed, but she hated me. I assume it was my habit of sometimes nodding off in classes. At the time, I had undiagnosed thyroid issues and was getting up at 5 a.m. for swim practice. I say sometimes because it happened maybe twice a month between all 8 classes. I don't remember nodding off in her class, but it could have happened. Anyways, her class was 50% essays and written reports. The rest were random quizzes and a couple of tests. I was on a student newspaper and I was a decent writer. I wasn't worried about maintaining a B or up. We wrote our first paper and I got a D. I was shocked. The class I struggled in was chemistry, and still my lowest assignment grade was a C. After class, I asked Mrs. Umbridge what I did wrong, because her notes were minimal at best. She told me my assessment of the material was uninspired. Okay, can you direct me to an example of an inspired assessment? Come back during study hall, she said. Thinking she'd have some example material for me to review, I got a pass to see her during study hall. Nope. She spent the full hour basically telling me I was an idiot. I remember leaving and crying, because she didn't tell me anything constructive. My friend, the eventual valedictorian, offered to help me on my next paper. My friend and I spent hours on my next paper. She never got below A- on anything. I got another D. My friend was furious. She took it to her AP teacher and asked him to review it. She said she was entering a writing competition and wanted advice. He said it was great. Her typical A-plus work. My friend, quicker on the uptake, asked me for a copy of my original assignment. She asked her AP English teacher to look it over too, and he said she should enter the first one. This one was still good. He'd probably give it an A-, but the other paper was better. My friend was convinced Mrs. Umbridge was treating me unfairly for some reason, and she must not like me. My friend wanted to tell my parents or my school counselor. The teacher didn't like me? That had never happened. Sure, they didn't all love me, but none have actively disliked me. I decided I would try one more time, but this time get Mrs. Umbridge to help me. Despite the previous horrors of spending study hall with Mrs. Umbridge, I went to her office during study hall 3 times before the next paper was due. She reviewed my paper and gave me tips on revising it each time. She did this in red pen. I took notes. By the time the next paper was due, I had 3 revised versions with her notes in red ink on each one. I got a D+. She smirked and congratulated me on my improvements. Which I was done. My friend was right. This witch had it out for me, and was giving me crappy grades on purpose. I'm a laid-back person, but I was angry. Never before been this angry. I took my paper to my newspaper teacher. Sure, he didn't teach English, but our student paper constantly won awards because of his work. I told him I was having trouble in English, and could he please look over my paper and give me advice. He was a little confused as to why I didn't ask my English teacher. But he did it. He also told me it was great, but gave me a few minor changes to make. I asked him if he thought it was a B or better. He said he'd give it an A. Not 100%, but a solid A. I went to my friend and we brainstormed. I couldn't request a drop or add. This wasn't college. You just don't switch classes at high school, unless the teacher recommends an honor placement. That's not true, my friend said. The football and basketball guys get moved to easier classes all the time to keep their grades up, so they're eligible for games. The athletics director was a friend of my dad, so I requested a meeting with him and my swim coach after school one day. I told him I was in danger of losing my eligibility to swim because I was pulling a D in class. I wanted to move classes, but I knew I needed approval from administration, which I wouldn't get without a good reason. They asked if I requested help. I explained I'd asked for help from multiple people, but my grade wasn't improving. I didn't know what to do. They asked to see my papers. I sat while they read them. They both looked at me confused. Neither of them could understand how these papers were worth only a D. The student VP was brought in. He asked who helped me. I explained my friend. He knew who she was. Again, future valedictorian. And she even asked for her AP English teacher to look it over for advice. I had also asked my student newspaper to help me. Student VP asked if I had ever actually asked my teacher for help. I smiled and handed him the 3 revised versions of paper, number 3, with Mrs. Umbridge's red ink all over them. He frowned. AP English teacher and my newspaper teacher were pulled into the meeting. They were asked to grade the papers once each. All 3 papers got an A- or better. While this was going on, my dad was called in by the athletics director. My dad was angry. He demanded I be moved to another class, and that Mrs. Umbridge be put under review. Clearly, she wasn't grading students based on their work, but her own personal opinions. The school administration obviously bristled at the accusation that a teacher was treating students unfairly. A lot of arguing that I wasn't allowed to sit in on occurred in the VP's office. I could hear plenty of yelling as 6 adult men argued over the appropriate next steps. It was decided that myself, my dad, VP, and the athletics director would have a meeting with Miss Umbridge. The following morning before school, we all met. Miss Umbridge seemed to think she was going to get to tell everyone why I was so stupid. VP explained that if I maintained a D in her class, I would lose my extracurricular eligibility, and we were all meeting to discuss what to do. She smirked and said I should be moved to the non-honors English track. I had no business being in honors English. I didn't have the aptitude to understand the complex classical literature they were studying, and I probably would need a tutor to even get through basic English. I've never seen my father so red, and I half expected to see steam come out of his ears. VP asked why she didn't try to help me improve. She said it was up to students to put in the initiative to get better. VP asked if that meant I never asked for help. She said I had not. VP pulled out the 3 revised versions of paper numbers and handed them to Mrs. Umbridge. Now it was her turn to be read. She called me a liar and said those notes weren't hers. Things got heated, and I was asked to leave again. I sat outside the office. This time the secretary was shouting. Then AP English teacher and the newspaper teacher were called in again. More shouting. About 5 minutes to the start of class, the teachers left, and I was called back in. If looks could kill, I'd have died effective immediately. My current grade would not carry over. I would not need to make up any past assignments, and a new teacher would be instructed to grade me only on the assignments going forward. My new English teacher, Mrs. Honey, ended up being the English department head. She was at least 65, and had been doing this for decades. About 2.5 years of honors English. The class was easier than PE. I barely had to try to get an A. But I refused to let Mrs. Honey think Miss Umbridge had been right. I tried harder in that class than any other class that semester. I finished projects so quickly that I was asked to tutor a girl struggling in class. I spent half the class period just helping this girl understand the material. I helped her go from a C minus to a B plus. I got something like 104% in that class. At the end of the semester, Mrs. Honey called me into her office during study hall. She was recommending I return to honors English for senior year. I must have looked panicked because she assured me Miss Umbridge would not be my teacher. In fact, she would not be anyone's teacher. She was leaving at the end of the school year. Miss Umbridge was only in her late 20s and unmarried. Too early to retire, and my high school was one of the best paying school districts in the state. I knew what leaving meant, but Miss Honey still explained that I was put in her class on purpose. The school administration trusted Miss Honey to determine the truth of Mrs. Umbridge's claim that I was basically a lying idiot. Miss Honey stated very clearly I belonged in honors English. She apologized if her class had not been challenging enough for me. I cried. I mean, I full-on ugly snot-nosed cried. I didn't realize it, but part of me had actually believed Miss Umbridge up until that moment. Miss Honey hugged me and consoled me. I spent senior year in honors English and spent my study hall tutoring Mrs. Honey's struggling students. To this day, I think about that awful woman fairly regularly. My career is strongly writing-based, and I still worry obsessively over my writing. I hope she never taught again, because she wreaked havoc on my self-confidence. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.